What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Myles. Now today we're going to talk about 3 jobs that I had that I used to make it into the UFC, the big leagues MMA. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what I believe are some good jobs to take and how you should be working in general if you want to make it to the UFC and Bellator. I'm also going to give you guys 2 tips at the end of the video on what UFC, Dana White, and Sean Shelby look for when they're choosing somebody to give them a contract to enter into that so-called Super Bowl of mixed martial arts. Let's get to it. So I get this question all the time on the YouTube channel. Myles, I want to make it into the UFC. Myles, I want to fight inside that octagon. Myles, how do I get there? And it's a complex question. It's not like a one-size-fits-all. And there's certain steps and certain protocols that you need to take in order to make it to the UFC. Now, nothing is guaranteed, but it just shows when you make certain steps, your chances of getting there are a lot bigger and a lot better. So one of the most important things is the jobs you're going to be taking and the jobs you're going to be having before you get to the UFC. I mean, unless you're gifted with a bunch of money and you don't have to work, then that's awesome. But for the majority of us, we still have to pay for food, shelter, transportation, and that's why we need a job until we make it to the big show and start making those big bucks. I'm going to give you guys my exact blueprint on 3 jobs that I had in my late teens and early 20s all the way until I got into the UFC. Only when I made it to the UFC was it then that I was able to quit my jobs and be able to focus 110% on my UFC career. I've had 14 fights in the UFC, and I've been on 2 seasons of The Ultimate Fighter. I've been ranked top 10 in the whole world, and I fought on pay-per-view, I fought on Fox, I fought on ESPN, and Spike TV. So I've been around the game for a while, and these are 3 proven jobs that I've used personally to be able to make it to the UFC. Your main priority as a fighter needs to be training. You need to be training each and every day, twice a day. You need to be learning mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, striking, and you need to be taking fights and building your resume because that's what the UFC looks for. First things first, if they were to say, hey, is this guy going to be able to fight in the UFC? Let's look at what he's done. And they go and they look you up and they look at your record, which is your resume. Just like any other job. If I was to go apply at a bank, they're going to want to know who I am, what kind of experience I have, and that's my resume that I bring. So coming up as a fighter, your 2 priorities need to be training each and every day, perfecting your craft, and then building your record or building your resume. Because when you get that opportunity, UFC is going to look at that record and say, this guy's 6-0, 7-0, maybe 8-1. Yeah, he's ready. He's ready to get into the big leagues, and let's give him a shot. So your job needs to be secondary to your training and fighting career. So let me make this a little bit clear. So all your job needs to do is be able to pay for your food and your housing and maybe a little bit of money if you need to drive to the gym for your transportation, but just the essentials to get by. You shouldn't have a job that needs to be making a bunch of money so you can be out, messing around, doing all kinds of stuff. No, you just need a roof over your head, you need somewhere to sleep, you need some food, and you need a gym to go train at. Because remember, you need to be in the gym, working out all the time, getting better, and you need to be taking fights, winning fights, and building up that record. So your job needs to be able to provide you with that time and that focus on your career. Now, my very first job that let me focus on my career was working at the Detroit Zoo. And I was in the warehouse department when I was there. It was an awesome job, and I was in my late teens when I got it. I basically would show up to work, I'd get there a little bit early, 8 a.m., and before I'd get to the work site, I would go for a run, I would get some cardio in, and I would get to the job site, and my job was in the warehouse, so I was in responsibility of delivering food to each of the restaurants that was in the Detroit Zoo. So there was like the Arctic, the Safari, and in the morning we would load up our truck, and we would go to each restaurant and deliver food. Anything from ice cream to chicken tenders. Man, a lot of delicious food. I'm in training camp right now, and it makes me hungry just thinking about it. But that was my job. I would basically go to each department there, drop off food, and then other than that, I had little jobs to do there as well, like driving around on a golf cart, delivering food throughout the day when they ran out of certain supplies. Again, the Arctic, the Safari, just those restaurants, that was my main focus, that was my job. But I would be out of there around 3, and I would still be able to get to the gym right around 4:30, and I could train 2 hours of jiu-jitsu, 2 hours sometimes of striking or wrestling. So I was able to get that cardio in the morning and that training after. And the job was just enough to where I was able to pay for my rent. I had a little bit of money in my pocket for food, and just enough to get by. The number 2 job I had was smashing subscribe buttons and thumbs up buttons. Don't forget to hit them, guys. Now my second job was security. This is actually probably the best job I would recommend for somebody wanting to be in the UFC. The hours provide you with flexibility so you can train. Usually you're working from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're usually working 10 p.m. to about 2 a.m. So all throughout the week, you can train. You can do that jiu-jitsu, get your sparring in, get your road work in, you can get your mitt work in. And then come Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can still work out. You can still get those jiu-jitsu rounds in, those wrestling rounds in. And then at night, you go and you work at the bar. I mean, I did anything from security to work in the front door at bars. I would go and watch job sites. Like Target would be getting built out, so I'd stay overnight and watch their supplies, make sure nobody stole them. I would also go and just work inside the clubs and work security. I had a lot of great experiences there, and I met a lot of awesome people, but the main focus is it provided me with enough flexibility to where I get my training in, get my rounds in. Now, number 3 job that I had was teaching classes. This was at a martial arts gym. I did it in Michigan, and I've also done it out here in San Diego. I taught anything from wrestling to kickboxing to jiu-jitsu. This is another good job for an up-and-coming fighter to have because, again, you're already at the gym. It provides you with a lot of time to work on your craft. You know, it'd be maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would be teaching classes for an hour, and I would get paid anywhere from 25 to 40 bucks a class. It was enough money to be able to pay for some housing. At the time, I was sleeping in a front room and be able to throw a couple $100 a month towards rent, and I had enough money to eat. That was my main focus. Other than that, I was in the gym. I was sparring, I was wrestling, and I was taking fights. I was going and fighting in Connecticut. I was going and fighting in Michigan and building my resume up. Because I knew I'm not going to teach classes forever. I knew that I'm not going to work at the Detroit Zoo forever. And I also knew that I'm not going to work security forever. This is just a short-term job to get me into the UFC. And that's where I made it. I ended up making it to the UFC, and after I got there, about being there for my first fight, I stopped teaching at the gym, and I was able to focus even more on my craft. I was even able to focus on upcoming fights and dialing everything in and getting better. Now, the 2 tips that UFC looks for, Dana White and Sean Shelby, is they're going to look at your record, and they're going to make sure you're on a winning streak. So again, taking those fights, fighting anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year, up and coming, that's super important because they need that experience and they want to see that you are winning fights. And on top of that, they're going to look at your fight footage. So make sure you're out there, you're exciting, you're tapping people out, you're knocking people out, and again, you're winning fights. Because those are the 2 big things that UFC is going to look at when they choose to sign you or not sign you. And just one more tip for you before you go. Make sure when you're on the come up and you're working these jobs to keep your living expenses as low as possible, because that way you don't have any overhead that you got to be taken care of. That way, you can focus on the main priority, which is your career. That is training, taking fights, winning fights, and then it'll pay off when you get to the big show. So make sure you're crashing on couches, maybe renting out a room instead of having a whole apartment to yourself. Make sure you're driving with friends to the gym instead of trying to go get your own car. And make sure you're getting those ramen noodles and those little snacks for the cheap, because that's how it was for me on the come up, and you got to do what you have to do to make it in order to get to those big shows. Let me know what you guys think. Until next time.